Thank you, everybody, for attending today for a Protective Emergency Service Committee meeting, August 28th, 12 p.m. We're going to call the meeting to order. Approval of the agenda. Moved by Your Worship, second by Deputy Mayor. Declarations of conflict of interest. We see none. Approval of the previous minutes, draft minutes, July 24th, 2024. Moved by Your Worship, second by Deputy Mayor. Was there any business arising from those minutes?
Just on page 2, I know the chief's here and the deputy. Fire operation report, Tim Mamie presented the report, and I was asking about the fire underwriter's report. And he said the completion at this point is still late August, so we're late August. Hopefully we can get an update on that.
Chief, would you be discussing that during your report?
Yes, Chair, through, or Your Worship, through Chair, I will be giving an update on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you,
Thank
Chief. Any other business arising? Okay, let's go right into reports. Operational report, Deputy Fire Chief Kent Mitchell, please.
Your Worship, Chair. This operational report is inclusive July 1st to July 31st. The fire department, we had 4 general inspections in this time period, and we had 12 inspections with hazard compliance orders issued. We had 10 plan reviews and 3 fire investigations, and a total of 23 fire prevention education sessions with fire drills. Total emergency responses were 88 for that time period, with 52 from District 1 and 35 from District 2, and 1 fire inspector call-out. Training is continuing with our second cohort of firefighters are continuing with the Blue Card Incident Command training, with a 3rd group beginning in early fall. And our weekly training schedule will resume on our Monday night training nights, as well as specialized training throughout the week starting September 3rd, that should say. During this period, we also had 8 department members receive our long service awards at our award banquet. We had firefighter James Pickard receiving 5 years, firefighter Brad Kennedy with a 10-year award, fire prevention officer Spencer Waite with 10 years, firefighter Bobby Chandler 15 years, firefighter Randy Flanagan 15 years, firefighter Bruce Junker 15 years, fire inspector Winston Bryan with 20-year award, and our retired admin assistant Judy Gould with 35 years. We'd like to congratulate all our team with those awards. Fire prevention was active with over 325 children participating, with 100 receiving fire safety education during July. On August 5th, the department began an extended platoon shift schedule change beyond our traditional 8-hour schedule. With this big change in the department, we'd like to congratulate and welcome our new career firefighters, John Bell, Josh Morrison, and Dwayne Farrell. We'd like to congratulate those gentlemen. Also, the week of August 5th, our new executive assistant, Jackie Torville, began with the department. Congratulations, Jackie, and she's doing a great job. I can inform the committee. We'd also like to inform the committee that postings have occurred for the following department positions. As we speak, these positions are actively advertised: platoon chiefs, relief firefighters, and volunteer firefighters. And as Chief Mamie mentioned, we're anticipating the fire underwriter's draft report, and Chief Mamie will have an update on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Chief, and we're so pleased to see that the 3 full-time firefighters are finally started their job 2 or 3 weeks ago, I believe it was, when I got the call. And it's great because they've been waiting for a while, and I knew that and I know it takes a little bit of while to get everything underway, but that's great to hear. Thank you. Any questions for the Deputy Chief? See none? Okay. Where are we at here now?
Chair,
Yes, go ahead, sir.
just, it was mentioned there that I don't know if it said, again, fire underwriter survey, just, when's the reception going to be of that report?
No, the chief's
was-
going to
it
sort of
was,
present
I
that
think-
during his report, Councillor Beck.
Oh, sorry, I missed that. Oh, end of August, excuse me. Okay.
Yeah,
I
he's
was
gonna
lo-
give
I
us
was
an up-
looking, sorry, my fault.
Yeah, he's going to give us an update when he does.
Thank you, thank you.
You're very welcome.
I can just add on to the back of the report here, Chair, if you'd like, just as an update on the fire underwriters.
Sure.
Since the questions are
Yeah.
asked, so thank you.
Okay.
Unfortunately, and it's once again due to the gathering of the required data to determine future growth corridors and access, the report is now looking at mid-September. It's all GIS related. We're gathering the data here. We've got our planning department working diligently with the authors of the official plan, who have the official plan for the city, identifying corridors and nodes of growth. So to get all that information to our GIS specialist and then into the hands of the fire underwriters is taking its time. It's the transfer of information from the official plan authors and city staff to get that information to fire underwriters. So it continues. We're working at it. It's a lot of information, a lot of layers on the GIS data, and our GIS specialist is working at that. And it's just the accumulation of data. The latest update I've got, which is from this week, is that the op team, which is the official plan team, is going to send the information to our GIS specialist, once again confirmed, and the GIS specialist will immediately forward that on to the fire underwriters, and we're looking at a mid-September completion now for our draft report, unfortunately.
Any questions? I know you do, Your Worship. Thank you.
Chief, appreciate that. But as the deputy mayor knows, and Councillor Ramsey knows, this started back in 2019, this whole issue. And to find out, we have to get layers and layers and layers. That's great. But we have to make a decision. We purchased the land out there on Mulpeck Road back in 2017. Here we are 7 years later. We have a growing population out there in Winslow, West Royalty, and surrounding area. Also, we were told, I think by the previous CAO, Mr. Kelly, said we had to wait for the arbitration to complete itself. It's completed. Firefighters are now working their 24-hour shifts, as the deputy mentioned. Okay, so we have that in place. Chief, I'm going to ask this committee to support and I don't need a resolution, but a commitment from this committee that the report has to be here in September, and we have to have recommendations. I am not waiting any longer, and I'll tell you why, because that land that we have out there, if we're not going to use it, there are many entities in the community that are looking at building something new, building something for the community, building something for their professional organization. So we have to move on, and I've waited, I've been patient. Councillor Ramsey, I believe you were on the Police Protection and Emergency Service Committee. We're at the 11th hour, I keep repeating this story, the 11th hour to go to construction, and you as incoming chief said, put the brakes on, wrong site. All I want to know is, what's the fire underwriter study? Like, this is not the first time we've done one. We done one back, what, was it 2019? Like, we
I believe earlier than that, Your Worship.
yeah, we got studies out there. Like, I don't know, I don't see how the land, if the study in 219 or 217 didn't look at the GIS, the GPS, or we're waiting for something from SpaceX to come down and to give us information about what the lay of the land is, just, all we want to see is, are we going forward on a third station? Are we going forward on one station? And that one station means one station. One station to me, as I've heard, is that could be at another site, but we keep the downtown station. Well, that's two stations. So we just need clarification. This fire writers underwriter study, we've all been waiting patiently. And I know that it's a tough decision for your fire services, but as a community, we, you know, in the election of 2018, 2022, out in the Winslow area, the West Royalty area, when are we getting, when is the city going to build a new station out here? We are in a growing community, And we're a growing, not only a growing community, there's a growing liability for the city if we can't respond quickly enough, which I think we can. But all I need to know, I think we all want to know, is by mid-September, that's the last date I'm waiting for, because we can't wait any longer.
If I can respond, Your Worship, I definitely could. Just to go back a little bit and explain why the pause was put on and from the land purchase. The land was purchased in 2017 as a replacement for Station 2, meaning the department was still going to have 2 stations, and that's how we'd operate. Before any plans were put together to build that station and replace Station 2, it became Station 3 without any underwriter's report, without any operational plan development. So when I came in as chief, acting chief at the time, I asked the committee here to support the pause of that project because we had no operational plan developed for 3 stations within the city. They didn't suit in the current 3 positions. So we've asked the underwriters to do 7 things for us. Determine between the 2 pieces of land we have now, Station 1, Station 2, and the 3rd piece of land, Station 3. Are they appropriate? Do we need 3 stations? Do we need 2 stations? And where do they need to be? The biggest thing and the most important thing, I think, for all of our residents is that we don't want to build and spend millions of dollars to put a station in the wrong place and realize that halfway through. I was part of the design team for the 3rd station. It does not suit as a standalone. It does not suit as a replacement for 2 any longer, that design, because it was changed to a Station 3. So I had to pause that to make sure this city spent the money in an appropriate place, and I was looking after my responsibilities as the fire chief to make sure we had that. We're still doing that. I'm at the underwriters consistently, Your Worship. You've been waiting patiently. I've been waiting impatiently. So just understand that it's not that we don't want it and need it, because that's 100% what we want and need, is to find out what is best for this city, 1, 2, or 3 stations, and where they should be operationally. They do not want to tell us to put it here, only to learn that the official plan has us growing and putting apartment buildings in what used to be a farmer's field, because then they'd have the station in the wrong place and they would identify that. So that's their hesitancy without all of this data. That wasn't done in 17 or 19. It was done way back in 7 or 6, 2007 or 2006. But we're trying to get an update now with the city growth and the projected growth into the future. That's what the holdup is, and that's why so much data is required, so they can do it appropriately. I'll put the pressure on once again for a completed report, and we are working at that. And back, the arbitration is complete, but we still don't have a signed collective agreement at this point. So there is still some outstanding points. We were able to get the schedule in place and start the 3 new firefighters, which we were looking to do back when we actually made them the offer. But we're continuing to work that through, and we're just continuing to work with the fire underwriters, our GIS specialists, and our planning personnel to get that information.
So, Mr. Chair, just through you again, the corporate history is there. The corporate history has shown that this was an issue in 2014, it was 2018, 2022. I understand that there are complications when you do a fire underwriter study, but we have a growth management study that was completed by CBCL. That should have been forwarded to the FUS. That growth management study shows by 2040, our population will go from 42 to 66,000. That's what's projected. And we know through proposals on what's going on around, what's possible for development in the Winslow, West Royal area. You have Mike Cassidy that's looking at the Rhiners property, maybe 1,800 units. You look at the Landmark that's looking at 10 apartment buildings, plus a huge subdivision that's just on the east side of Highfield subdivision. Then you have the potential of another development on the east side of Malpeck Road between Sherwood Road and Melody Lane with maybe 1,400 units. Like, we know that growth we know. We understand that. I understand that, and I know you understand that. We've seen the numbers come in. So we have to look at beyond 2040, 2050. I understand that. But it's been layered down by, we need this information layered on top of this information. That's why I use the SpaceX. Like, are we going to be contacting them up in SpaceX maybe to get some geographical pinning of where we're at in possible growth or heat zones? I understand that, Chief, and I know you're under pressure, but I'm under pressure because you get councillors from that area that are getting calls about growth is happening. What's the fire services plan for our area? And I know you guys are the professionals. I'm not a firefighter, never want to be. You know, it's a career that I never looked at. But you guys are the professionals. I'm just asking, we just have to put a finite deadline on this. I'm saying by the next meeting in September, bring the report in, whether it's half completed, 3/4 completed, and let's start discussing it, because this discussion is not going away.
Yes, Your Worship, and everything you mentioned there highlights the importance of the underwriters getting this right, telling us or giving us the recommendation to put these things in the right place. All that growth you mentioned, the growth management study, that was shared with them. It's the the official plan now that highlights all those areas you've talked about for development and future development in those 20, 30, 40 years out, that they're trying to gather that data. It's when the borders of your city actually change, like ours has, with the Marshfield addition and the annex, and the growth that's going to be out there, it's hard for somebody like our GIS specialists or our planners to, without any actual permits being applied for, determine what that farmer's field is going to look like in 10 years, unless they know. Once they have a document in that says, here's what we want to develop here, then we know what's coming, and the official plan documents that. What they don't know is the mystery, and it's the holdup of trying to gather that data. It's future growth. They have a formula. If this stamp of land in the last census had this many people on it, and the one before that had this many people on it, they project that the next one is going to have that many people on it. When the same piece of land has had nobody on it for census after census, it's hard to project that they're going to have 1,800, 1,400 units without knowing. So that's the hesitancy, and that's the problem with all of the official data that they need to gather. But I will do everything I can, Your Worship and Chair, to bring this through for our next meeting.
Okay, so Chief, if we're waiting for the end of the official plan, that's next year off. No, that's next, then by the time the official plan completes its course, then we have to go into amending and modifying the zoning development bylaw. That's another year. So if we're waiting for that, that's too far out for me. And could I ask, this FUS, is this the same outfit or the same company that did our fire underwriter study in 2017, 2019? Are they the same group, or we got a different group?
No, they are the fire underwriters for this area. They're not the same group. They've changed. It changed from, I think, IG, I'm sorry with the names, but it's Opta now, OPTA.
Right.
It's out of Ontario, but they are the underwriters for Atlantic Canada.
Right. So they have the corporate knowledge, the corporate history of the previous studies. So the layer upon layers are there. It's just now we're adding more layers.
Exactly.
Again, Chief, I appreciate what you're doing. Mr. Chair, I appreciate that you allow us to discuss it at this committee every meeting. But I think we just have to put a finite on it to say, look, come September, let's look at the first draft, second draft, 3/4 finished, so that we can go on at least give us a path forward. Thank you.
And Chair, we are on schedule for that at this point.
Okay,
mid-September.
thank you. So you'll see what you can do and push as many buttons as you can. And because as the mayor says, when I was first elected in 2014, there was another councillor had this, and they're supposed to be looking at a fire station back then, like before 2014. And he asked me that first question the first night I was here, like, how are you getting along with the fire station? And I just looked at him and, like, I think I was here for a week. And I said, what are you talking about? You know, but anyway, it has to be looked at, and we got to start working towards it and putting this thing to bed. Because as the mayor stated too, it's been going on too long. Like, it's almost 10 years now, isn't it? Past 10 years.
It goes back to 2010 when I first ran for mayor in 2010. But again, Chief.
Yeah, okay.
When we talk about tax equity, fire, public works, development, like, we need these numbers on the table so that when we look at another 5-year deal with the province on their tax collection of property taxes in the city, we need a much better share than what we're getting now. Thanks.
Okay, so Chief, you're going to do whatever you can and push the envelope, I guess. Let's go to B, dangerous, hazardous, unsightly bylaw infractions. Police Chief Brad McConnell. Oh, I'm sorry, Chief, Fire Chief, you're done, were you? Yes. Okay, sorry about that. Chief McConnell?
Thank you, Chair. We have three reports in the package. The first, as you'd indicate, is the dangerous, hazardous, and unsightly bylaw infractions. The purpose of the report is to have 7 properties in Charlottetown cleaned up in accordance with the dangerous, hazardous, and unsightly premises bylaw. And the staff recommendation is that council give the Public Works Manager authorization to cut grass, remove any trees, garbage, and other materials or debris, dangerous or otherwise, clean up and properly dispose of the same at the property owner's expense at 7577 Brackley Point Road, 38 Westcombe Crescent, 30 Alexander Drive, 26 Glenthorne Avenue, 33 Wallace Drive, 31 Selkirk Crescent, and 3739 Passmore Street in accordance with the terms of the dangerous, hazard, and unsightly bylaw of the City of Charlottetown.
Okay, do we need a motion to move that towards council, or what did we vote on last night? Is that it's,
Yeah.
we don't get to do that anymore, your worship?
That's why I'm just going, I have the agenda from last night's meeting.
We had a meeting last
And
night.
it talked about second readings, which means now it's a bylaw, enforcement amendment bylaw. I have it here, enforcement and summary proceedings bylaw. Plus, I do have, just pass that around. I do have a diagram of how the bylaws are. So, I thought with this, the chief, and again, I appreciate the work you've done on this, but we did the second reading, and if you go down to the diagram that I gave you, it says, the second one from the bottom on the left-hand side, manager, Public Works will request council approval. I thought with the new amendments to the bylaw that now it becomes a ticketed issue. Am I correct or incorrect? Like, this just delays the process.
Yeah, I was trying to grasp that last night.
That's, and I know our chief was our acting CAO last night, and if you look at that, as I said, you go down the second last block on the left-hand side, Manager Public Works will request council approval for city staff to proceed with cleanup of property.
Chair, can I say something?
Yes, go right ahead, Councillor Beck.
Okay, I'm a little bit, I remember this chart. I thought this was an old chart that we were working under our old bylaw, and Scott was trying to put a flow chart out so that we would understand it. My understanding was that we've gone through a process of identifying which bylaws we want to prioritize. Came from our Strategic Priorities Committee. And I thought that one of the ones that we were looking to update was the unsightly premises bylaw throughout that process, because I don't think we have a change in our process because our bylaw has not been updated, is my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I was thinking that, because I put that I wanted to get that changed and addressed so that we wouldn't be in this predicament that we find ourselves on a monthly basis. So my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe I could seek clarification here, but my understanding is that when we update our unsightly premises bylaw, whatever it's called, then the process would change. But until that bylaw gets updated, our process will still remain cumbersome. That's how I understand it, and I may be wrong, but if I'm wrong, please clarify.
So anyone want to jump on that? That's the way I understood it too, Councillor Beck, is that since passing the second reading last night, does that automatically go into effect today, Your Worship? And that was my question, or Chief. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and that certainly is my understanding as well. There's a number of bylaws being reviewed and how they align with each other. And the making the summary offense bylaw more robust and have more impact was key to that, and how it interrelates back to bylaws like the hazards bylaw. So my understanding too is we're waiting for that to come kind of full circle before we implemented a new process. Because we've clearly tried that in the past and it didn't work out very well. So the review of the bylaws and making them better aligned and more robust was key to moving forward with a new process. That's my understanding as well.
Any more comments on that, Your Worship, or
Well,
Fire Chief?
again, the deputy knows from past experience, I kept asking for an enforcement and summary proceedings bylaw. I was told that we had a bylaw on summary proceedings bylaw, but this enforcement allowed us to give a minimum and a maximum fine. And that our manager from planning who was here, manager of planning and policy, Donna Miller-Ayton, this is just a template. We can amend it to add whatever we wish to amend, whatever we wish to add to it. But Councillor Beck is saying that, correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Beck, so you're saying that we have to change the unsightly hazardous dangerous bylaws so that it works with the enforcement and of the in summary proceedings bylaw? Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm not suggesting anything. That's just what I understood was what we were entertaining. That when we went through at strategic priorities, we were looking to make changes to our bylaw. Eleanor, our CAO, Eleanor said we've, 27 bylaws or something, or 52 bylaws. We're looking at updating, possibly consolidating, reconfiguring, whatever words you want to use. I'm not saying it's my direction in anything. I'm just saying that's what I understood. I agree with the chief that we needed clarification on the enforcement summary bylaw, which we needed for our STRs and all those other things. So there's all kinds of reasons for updating the summary enforcement bylaw. But tagged with that was changing our actual unsightly premises bylaw, which I understood would be part of review as we're undertaking the review of the other 52 bylaws or whatever we have that we are going to be looking at. I'm not suggesting that we do anything. I'm just saying that's my understanding as to what we talked about in here with the direction as to where we were going with all this, based on what we did at strategic priorities and what we're doing here here now. So I'm just looking for clarification and just a common understanding for everyone to have. But that's the way I had interpreted it.
Yeah, and that's the way I basically heard it last night, like the second reading was passed unanimously, and so automatically you would think it would sort of kick right in, and then like these would not have to come back to council, right? Every month, that our bylaw officers can just go do their job. That's the way that I understood it. Maybe I'm sort of missing something, I don't know.
Well, again,
fast as
I
that.
think the hang-up that we've had is our bylaw said we had to go with this process. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding was that we had to go with this cumbersome process of bringing it in here, Constable Sutcliffe identifying all the issues, giving all the chances to remediate, allowing for successful remediation to take place, and if it doesn't, then it comes here, which is long and time-consuming. And, as we have seen, ineffective, by and large, for the most part. So until we change, we have one change made, but I think there's a commensurate change that has to be made with it in order to allow us to kick right in with the, that's my understanding. And again, correct me if I'm wrong. I may have this wrong, but that's what I understood. So it's only one part of the change. There's still other changes that have to be made.
Well, I think there's a couple things. I think the one is the issuing of the tickets, which is, I think what the worship is.
That's part of the package.
Is part of the package, and then also the process in which that comes to council for a decision or or empowers the bylaw officer to make decisions given the fact that these things have occurred. I think that's two separate items, both under review. Some of the challenges with the enforcement side of the bylaws is the recourse the city has if someone pleads not guilty or it enters into a court proceeding and really the whole mechanism that invokes, and which is what we were looking for the city's legal team to look at how that summary offense proceedings interrelates to the bylaws and what we could do to strengthen our ability to to get people to pay their tickets, and if they choose to plead not guilty, come up with a less intrusive, less expensive way to allow that to be challenged.
Yep, no, I'm just looking at the dangerous hazardous unsightly bylaw right here. So there is an enforcement component to it, section 7. Deals with the notice, so that's the notice that our bylaw enforcement officer issues. Then there is under section 8, non-compliance, subsection 8.3, a resolution passed by city council shall be in effect for 18 months from the date of passing and enables the inspector to re-enter at any time to remedy a recurrent condition.
That's hazardous.
No, that's a whole bylaw.
Yeah.
That doesn't just apply to hazardous, that applies to unsightly and dangerous.
The ones that have been issued.
That applies to the ones that have come before council
No,
previously.
I understand that, but it doesn't say anything about going to council under the enforcement
No.
for enforcement standards to get a property to clean up its unsightly premises.
Your worship is correct. When I'm looking here at Schedule B,
Where? What are you looking at? What's
Schedule B of the draft enforcement summary proceedings bylaw that we approved last night for second reading.
Yep.
So if you look under Schedule B, and it outlines the various bylaws that fall under this for getting tickets and dangerous, hazardous, unsightly premises, your first offense is $500. And so from my understanding of this, the bylaw officer can go out to a property that fits into this without checking with council and just give them a ticket. And then the second offense is $800, third offense is $1,000, subsequent offenses are $1,500. And I would think that if none of that works, then we prompt ourselves to our dangerous, hazardous, and unsightly premises bylaw into the next steps, which is when Public Works goes in and cleans it up. I don't know. That's kind of my understanding from this, but it's all rather unclear, unfortunately, again.
Chair, if I could just comment on that, and Councillor Yankov is correct, but the way the bylaw has evolved and is the on-the-ground reality that there's a property that needs to be cleaned up, right? And the people that don't respond to the ticketings or the warnings, right, there's still a property that is not in compliance, and this 18-month period was allow repeat offenders to be dealt with very quickly, as opposed to it lingering and having to go through the process every time. And we realize there's lots of work to do in this process, and it's far from perfect. But I go back to previous comments. That is part of a bigger alignment of bylaws and review, and that I think that if this problem was easy to solve, we would have already solved it without having to go through this very long process involving legal counsel. And the reality is that we get the ones that are not in compliance, we don't get a great response from, whether it's tickets, warnings, or anything. So we're forced to engage this process to clean up these properties.
Mr. Chair, just to the chief, through the chair to the chief. So Chief, now, as the deputy read off, there's a Schedule B, and we do have a summary proceedings bylaw that's now been, it's part of our bylaws. So Schedule B, so what you read off to us, those 6, 7 properties, they've gone through the course. Our enforcement, bylaw enforcement officer's been out once, twice, 3 times, right? Okay, understand that. So going forward, he doesn't have to go once, twice, 3 times. Once, $500, correct? Twice,
800.
800? 3 times, 1,000. That's what it is in the bylaw. So going forward, that's where we'll be going. Is that, can we get that clarified? Oh, hold on.
Your worship, I don't think that's, I think it's, the issue is that what do you do when they don't pay that or don't comply,
Yeah,
right? That's the issue,
right.
right?
It says right here, if you don't pay, you go down to section, subsection 8.3, subsection 8.4, the inspector, which I am assuming is our bylaw enforcement officer, with the assistance of city's solicitor, shall cause the cause of such vacation, repair of or demolition, or other work done to be charged against the property as a municipal lien. So that goes to court. It's right there.
And that does occur on a regular basis,
Right.
yeah.
But going forward, I don't think that if we go with the 1 fine, 2 fines, 3 fines, then we have to utilize or trigger sections 8, subsection 8.4, then that comes back to council. That's what we have to clarify. All I'm trying to do is streamline the process, and I know you want to also. And there must be jurisdictions out there that have gone through this same, like, we've been discussing it for 4 years at planning, development, and heritage on just homeowners building an accessory building without a permit, and the only option we have is to take them to court. But now with a ticket, they have to plead not guilty, and we go to court as a plaintiff and they as a defendant. So I just trying to, and I'm sure it would be comforting to you and also our bylaw enforcement officers that if they have just a simple system or an efficient, effective system of fining people, that will hopefully be a deterrent rather than something that'll be just promoting more properties that are hazardous, dangerous, and unsightly.
I think what you're saying, your worship, speaks to exactly what we're struggling with, is congruence between our summary enforcement bylaw and our hazardous and unsightly. There's not a, I don't know if congruence is the right word, or connection between the two. So I don't think what I'm hearing about, that I don't think we go to the process of saying, well, there's an unsightly property, let's issue them a $500 ticket. I still think there has to be an element of trying to work with the residents and say, listen, here's some issues that we've identified, can you please take care of cleaning up your property? Then if they don't, or if you're repeatedly doing it, and this is the issue where we've been struggling with, is we've been dealing with repeat properties who are just simply saying, I really don't care, effectively. But, so I think what we have to do, it goes back again to speaking to making sure that we have an alignment between our bylaw, our summary offense bylaw, and what's written, and what is that process going to look like for the Constable Sutcliffes of the world, for the Elizabeth Chacas of the world, and all our other enforcement people that are going to be doing it, or any other police officers that fall into it as well, too. Because if we're sitting here and struggling with it, I'm sure they are, too. So I think we have to get that part figured out as we're updating things. We've taken one step. Let's take other steps and make sure that it's clear, because I think we'll probably end up in the same boat again here, having the same similar discussion.
Mr. Chair, it is clear, Councillor Beck. It is clear. It is clear by saying that subsection 8.4, the inspector, who I am assuming is the bylaw enforcement officer, with the assistance of the city solicitor, shall cause the cost of such vacation, require demolition, or other work otherwise to be or other work to be done charged against the property as a municipal lien, or to be recorded in a suit of law against the owner. So that's there. But in terms of a warning, yeah, I've been pulled over for speeding, you know, give that sad look, you know, I was going to see my daughter over in Halifax, can you give me a break? They give me a warning ticket. I'm sure that will be part of the process. But I think what we're dealing with right now is the chief has 6, 7 properties that have to follow the process that started before this bylaw was passed last night for a second reading. But I'm saying now going forward with the bylaw in place, and if we have to make adjustments to our dangerous, hazardous, unsightly bylaw to make it more congruent or connected to our summary proceedings bylaw, then I think that's following what Donna Miller-Ayton was saying. We got a template in place now. Now we can start amending it, making it more workable for enforcement and how it goes through the system, whether it's political or it's administrative. This is an administrative issue, to me, it is. And I think if we look at the helmet issue, we look at, and we're going to be dealing with that with the e-scooters, like, we follow the traffic bylaw, which is a provincial, the traffic, is it traffic bylaw? Yes, for helmets. But we use the act, the provincial act, to fine them. Well, we can put this in our summary summary proceedings bylaw that we fine them from a city, not from the province's enforcement. So, look, Councillor Beck, this has been a discussion for the last 4 years, mostly at the planning board and planning level. Now it's getting into policing and enforcement. So
Okay, so
can
we need a motion to move this to council, correct?
yes.
Like until we're all cleared with this, I guess, that we're just gonna go, what we do every month. Like the 7 properties, then you said with the warnings, they all got warnings already.
Well, if that's
Like
what
it
my
stated right here, like the 7 properties, it says warning posted. So they have their warning, but so we're moving, I need a motion to move this on to council.
moved.
Okay.
Now-
Moved by the mayor and second.
Resolution's on the floor, but going forward, we have to find out anything that is an unsightly, dangerous, hazardous property after today, from yesterday's second reading of the enforcement and summary proceedings bylaw, where do we go? Does it come back to council? Do we use this diagram forever a day, or do we put this to
Chief,
rest?
can you sort of check it out with administration, as your worship said, and see where we sit after today?
Brett?
Like, or
Yes,
Right,
10-4. I think Tim has some
sorry.
stuff he'd like
Just a
to
quick,
share.
if I would, Your
Yeah.
Worship, through Chair. The changes or the amendments to the dangerous, hazardous, and unsightly bylaw that were approved through second reading last night, there's 6 of them, don't change the entirety of the dangerous, hazardous, and unsightly bylaw, just 6 sections that were changed. And I think this process, until these are written into the new bylaw and the bylaw is finally signed off, I think by mayor and CAO, if I'm not mistaken, then the new bylaw with the amendments would be then in place. Although it's approved last night through the second reading, it has to be actually administered to the document,
Yeah.
for these documents.
So that's why I'm saying that we continue with what's been placed in front of us today. But I'm asking going forward, are we going to get these every month? And I don't think we have to. That's what we'll have to find out through legal counsel, which I'm sure we'll get that sooner than later. Thanks.
Okay, Chief, where are we at?
Chair, I think we're at our second report.
Yeah, C, the outreach center, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to bring it up on my computer. The outreach center stats, Chief Brad McConnell.
Thank you, Your Worship, our Chair. I just want to take an opportunity to provide some statistics that we've gathered in comparative to relative times of last year about the area of the Community Outreach Center and surrounding areas. You know, the purpose of the report is to provide Committee and Council an update on the policing impact at the Outreach Center. The calls for service at the Outreach Center itself are down 40.1%. The increase in calls for service in the surrounding areas primarily occurring in 2 public locations, one at Joe Gibbs Park, and the second is at the Tim's and Wendy's on the corner of Grasson Street and Riverside Drive combined. They account for 217 calls. The in the statistics that we provided. When backing out the park and the business calls for service, resident calls for service relating to the outreach center are down 51.6%. And I think it should be further noted that the overall mental health calls throughout the city have been down over the last 3 consecutive months, and this is the first reduction we've seen in over 3 years.
Good news.
Well, I think it is good news, Your Worship. I think when, in our attempts to lower the noise and lower the impact on the surrounding areas, and especially residential areas, more focus can be put on the services that are provided, and ultimately those services, hopefully, this is the indicators we're seeing are hopefully being received and transitioning back in the community into better outcomes for people. And so we're optimistic. And of course, we know that there's much work to do, and there are concerns from neighbors and residents, and no one is more acutely aware of those than myself and my team. And we assure residents and business owners in the area that we will continue to put a focused approach in those areas to ensure that we minimize the impact as much as possible.
Yes, it is great news that it is down, but the problem is certainly not going away, as we all know, and it won't go away. And it's just that they're going from A to B in certain places, and as you stated, they're going to Joe Gibbs Park and Tim's and Wendy's. And it's strange because those are people that will not go to the outreach center or go to the overnight shelter because rules, regulations. We all were born with rules and regulations in our own house, and some people would just, they won't follow them. They don't think they have to follow them, and that's the whole society it is nowadays. So that's just my 2 cents on it, but I'm pleased that the numbers are down, and let's hope that they keep dropping and everything's working out because, there's a lot of issues out there. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I do. Chief, we're starting to see some examples of tents encampments happening. What is, we had down at the events ground, 2 or 3 years ago, it got removed. No pun intended, but there are tent encampments popping up. I know of some in various parts. What's going to be the approach or I guess strategy in terms of dealing with that on a go forward basis? What do you see from that? And or maybe Chief, maybe you might be able, whoever could answer that question through the chair.
Whoever likes.
Chair, Councillor Beck, I think the success we're having is due to our strategy that we've employed for quite some time now. We don't have large encampments since there is because there's ongoing efforts every day from a number of city services to ensure that people are guided to the housing that is available. They're engaged and to make aware that there is no camping in our public areas. There's casework done with individuals to connect them with services. The challenges come, as many are aware, with those that that choose just to live in the rough and not accept those services, or because of behavioral issues, they're not allowed in the available housing. And so we find ourselves dealing repetitively with those same individuals. Those are the challenging ones. Those are the ones that you see, with the tents. We know that there's community groups too that support those individuals by giving them tents, and that becomes a challenge. I think there's an ongoing effort every day to engage individuals that are not without housing, to guide them to the appropriate housing resources, to connect them with other services that may be helpful, and that happens multiple times every day, during the night. Involves police, public works, fire, to ensure that that constant assessment is continually in motion, because that is really the reason we don't have encampments, large encampments across our city.
And I'm glad to hear that, Chief, because I think that, to use your words, constant assessment, constant approach is going to be important in keeping, either reducing that or allowing it to mushroom quickly and quickly get out of control. So I think that's an important part. And the other part about that too is, my understanding is that the shelter is not at 100% capacity on a full-time basis, that there's always rooms. There are community supports in place. The province has been putting in their plan into action. So there is collaborative work that's going on, that's happening. So I think that message is important, and I think it's important for people to understand that the ongoing work will continue, and there are pockets of success, and it's always going to be challenging, but it is encouraging to hear that there is success going with that. So we'll keep trying to do the best that we can. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Beck, for that. Thank you, Chief.
Yeah.
Do you want to
Mr.
move
Chair.
on, or you? Go ahead, Your Worship.
So, Mr. Chair, we did receive an email, and I think, Chief, you were CC'd on it. It's in the area around Belmont, Confederation Trail. This person wrote that the person called 85 times and 10 times in the last week. Are they reflective in your stats, or is there a disconnect? Could you answer that one first, please?
Sorry, Your Worship. Certainly we look at surrounding areas and the impacts also that's impacted. We also, we respond to those calls, and we have video overwatch in those areas, and we can measure, what actually happened compared to what's reported to happen. And sometimes it's a perception, the person's perception of what's happening is not the reality. And so it's important that we take that into, make sure that we have an accurate measurement of what's happening there and what's not happening there. I think we owe that to everyone, and we encourage people to call and relate their concerns, but they need to understand, as part of that, we will follow up and actually see what's going on there. And if there are infractions, if there is encampments, or if there are doing things illegal, then we will deal with them. But we can't deal with things that are just not accurate.
And Chief, Mr. Chair, just to follow up through the chair to the Chief, there, again, some of the text messages, emails, Facebook messages I've received, called, no response. Called, no response from police services. So I think what you're saying, that with the camera, with the e-surveillance, you're able to see that, look, you're able to pinpoint, see not only current time, but also previous time, because it's archival, right? There's an archive of what you see there. Is that what you're getting? Is that you're seeing what you're seeing, and that again comes through interpretation? Is it at different levels? Is that correct to say?
Well, I think that's accurate, Your Worship, in the fact that, I'd be surprised if someone called and there wasn't a police response. Some of that, what they may not realize is that response involves, video overwatch. We may have video in the area and be able to assess that. It could be because they didn't observe the interaction between the officers and the individuals they may have reported on. There's lots of circumstances that could be variables in that equation, but I'd be highly surprised if someone called for police service and there wasn't an officer dispatched. It just doesn't have a ring of truth to it to me, because I know that we provide exceptional service, and if you call for assistance, we send an officer. I can tell you that, and I'll share a story I think I've done many times. Sometimes when perception is different from the reality. A few years back, I had a complaint from a business owner complained about individuals urinating on the front of his business, and was convinced that it was this group of individuals, and I couldn't really convince him otherwise until we showed the video of what actually occurred. And what occurred was a fox come down the street and urinated on the door, and so sometimes one's perception is different from reality, and we have the tools and the expertise and the resources to try to ascertain the truth, and we owe it to everyone involved to make sure that it's done responsibly.
So, Mr. Chair, I just have a few more questions, if you don't mind, right? And I want to just go to this one. The mayor of Timmins, Ontario, has extended an invite to other municipalities of mid-size, small municipalities. Our deputy mayor will be going to that conference. It's sponsored through the Canadian Centre on Substance Use and Addiction, and it's going to be looking at mid-sized cities facing related to open drug use in early September. This is when the conference is going to take place. So it's about the open drug use, and I've heard, many times through talking to constituents, it's so blatant. But I go back to that September 5th meeting at Birchwood Junior High School, September 5th, last year, 2023. In your presentation, the Federal Prosecution Office has made it very clear federal prosecutors that are responsible for the Controlled Substance Abuse Act will not be prosecuting small crimes, but it will be going after the big fish, the big crimes, the big drug bust. So we know that. But Chief, and Mr. Chair, when we have to send a representative from the city of Charlottetown to the Canadian cities on substance abuse and addiction, that is not our responsibility. But we're going there because I know the deputy will pick up great information and take it back to council. But that's not our responsibility. I keep saying health and education are constitutional responsibilities of the province. It was in the BNA, British North American Act. It's in the Constitution Act of 1981. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. But we're being hauled into it, and it's causing undue expenses to our police forces, our fire services, our public works, parks and recreation. And last week we had a meeting here about the situation in the Joe Giz and Grafton Street East area. That we have to do something. But again, we have a facility called the Provincial Community Outreach Wellness Center, right? So that's supposed to be a stopgap. But here we are institutionalizing services that should be fall under the responsibility of the Minister of Health and Social Services or the Federal Minister of Health. But no, it's happening in our jurisdictions, it's happening in other jurisdictions, and you as police services chief, police services employees, staff are facing these issues every day. So that's why we've called on the FCM we forwarded a resolution from council to get more money from the federal government for small municipalities in providing more police services, because the federal responsibility and the provincial responsibility, which is in the Constitution Act of 1981, falls under those two levels of government for health and education. But again, we're being brought into it. So the clock is ticking on what's going to happen on that Provincial Community Outreach Center. In your opinion, have you seen a remarkably huge difference between the facility that has been relocated on Park Street to what we had previously down in Houston Street?
Your Worship, I can certainly speak to that. I've seen a marked improvement in the impact it was having to our residential community and our broader community. And I think it's obvious if you're in that area that it just feels and is different. And we're not saying it's perfect. I think there's work to be done there. And I think, as police services, we certainly have a role in that. But I think it has, the location change has given the ability to put more focus on the services. And though while we do see impact to businesses and there is a lot less impact to our broader residential community. We see that in our statistics. And we hear that from our citizens' feedback mechanism. I've personally gone door to door, as with, I think, some of the counselors, and we hear that. So, I think being involved, I think the deputy mayor going to that presentation is a very healthy thing. I think the more we understand this and what others are doing to approach it, whether our responsibility or not, is a healthy thing and responsible thing to do. And I would encourage that. And I look forward to hearing, some of the conversation from that meeting. But I think that the deputy chief or deputy mayor will find there that there'll be a lot of questions maybe to her about, what is happening in Charlottetown and how you achieving the success that you are achieving, because we are doing better than most in this. So, and again, that credit goes to all the teams that are working digitally every day and multiple times a day to do that. And this is a huge issue, and it's a challenging issue. But I think that constant assessment and constant, engagement is part of our success.
Mr. Chair, just a last point. This is the last point I want to come to, is that by talking about it, we're not hiding the problem. That's what I appreciate about our council and about our services, protective and emergency services. We're talking about it. And at the meeting last week for the Standing Committee on Parks Recreation, there was talking about maybe the 3 standing committees that are working on this issue: protective and emergency services, Parks and Recreation, Public Works. The 3 committees could come together to look at a discussion or have a discussion on how we can better work together as working outside the silos. That's what I'm talking about, working outside the silos. Because last week I was at the Enduring Spirit of Collaboration that was hosted by the Atlantic Summer Institute, and it talked about groups, all of us working together collectively, because I just think that this whole we're institutionalizing community fridges, we're institutionalizing food banks, soup kitchens. These were set up, these were put in place to be stopgaps. Provincial, federal governments have a responsibility to provide a safe and a caring society. And when we still have those stopgaps in place, that is not reflective of going forward. That is, we're still where we started. Because I remember when the food bank, or the upper room was started back in the mid-'80s, and I was on the Social Action Commission with the Diocese of Charlottetown. And Mary Boyd, the executive director, said, as soon as you get into this, it's a slippery slope. So that was back in the mid-'80s. Here we are in 2024. The issue's still there. Governments who have that responsibility constitutionally have a duty to step up. And I think that's the same for this Provincial Community Outreach Center and the Emergency Shelter. This is a stopgap. That's the short-term plan. We as a municipality, and all municipalities across Prince Edward Island, need to know what's the long-term plan for these issues. Because we, as municipalities, are being taxed through our police services, fire services, public works, Parks and Recreation. We need some kind of a bigger plan to show what's the end game here. Thanks.
Okay, we beat this to death. let's go to the third one, Chief. E-scooters update, please.
Thank you, Chair. The third report is about an update on the e-scooter situation in Charlottetown, and the purpose is to provide council with an update on the operation of e-scooters in Charlottetown. This report is from information purposes only, but the Charlottetown Police Services continue to see low compliance from the riders of e-scooters. They're continually riding with no helmets on sidewalks and with more than one rider. Our enforcement efforts have been increased, but e-scooters are being operated at all hours throughout the day and night due to there being no bylaw in place to prohibit that. A meeting with the vendors will be arranged to speak to those concerns. And as you know, it's a challenging issue, not just here and in every other jurisdiction. I was in Halifax recently, and it's even far worse than it is here.
Yeah, and we all see it and we all get the emails how this person's going down the street, they're going on the sidewalks, they don't have their helmets on. Somebody drove by my house one night with a little fella on the front of it, and they didn't have a helmet on, and things like that. And once again, these are businesses that came to Charlottetown as a pilot project, but we're supposed to police it. And, I don't know how they're ever going to do it by forcing people to have helmets on. It's the same with the bikes and the e-bikes, your worship. We see them every day. There's people driving around. We don't have the resources or the officers, in my mind, to be on every street in the city of Charlottetown to see somebody drive down and say, pull them over. But maybe if we can get a public service announcement out there and we hit 3 or 4 of them with their fines, I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there, but maybe between our comps and our police department, get a public service that you gotta wear your helmets or you're gonna be fined $200, $500, whatever it is. There has to be something out there because it's not getting any better.
I think, Chair, one of the things that we're kind of disappointed in is that some of the technology, the mitigating technology that we were hopeful would prevent this is not working. And so we're going to have to come back with the vendors and readdress that and see if we can make some strides. I think certainly we owe it to them to progress through and evolve through this in a responsible way, but we owe it to citizens to make sure that our streets are safe, our sidewalks are safe. So we'll certainly keep committee and council updated on our progress there.
Yeah, thank you for that. And it isn't just the ones that own these scooters. There's probably some private people own scooters also. So we're not just picking on these vendors, but at the same time, they're the most popular people that are out there. And as I keep stressing, it's the pilot project, and from what some of the emails I get from a lot of our councillors, they might say no to these people next year unless these things are tidied up, because the last thing you want is someone hurt, and it happened in our sister city a couple months ago. One of the officers would tell me, and if they would have had a helmet on, this person wouldn't have got hurt. So I don't know. I as a parent and as a grandparent, you want to just sort of beat this to death, but it's been going on for years too. Okay.
I have some.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Councilor Beck.
I was just going to say, we've done education through, there's been messaging about the importance of safety helmets. Everyone knows they have to be worn. They're just chosen to not be worn. Let's be honest. That's the reality. Whether you're renting them from the company or whether you're just driving down the street, there's just people that choose to. And the only way that really, there's no point in trying to reinforce that message. The message has been made loud and clear. Kenny Murnion has been advocating for that for years through all kinds of public initiatives. Everyone knows what the rules are. It's just blatantly not being chosen to it. But I want to go back to something that you did mention, Chief, about the overnight usage or the late night usage or usage into early in the morning. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when we were going back, one of the things that was presented to us, to your point, was that there was going to be mitigating measures put in place. The reaction test, the age test, the going into, like, down around the boardwalk. There are going to be geographically GIS blocked, or GPS blocked. And one of those I thought was time, because the operator wanted to have unfettered access, really basically originally wanted 7 days a week, 24/7, and because that constricted his ability to generate revenue. But my understanding was that there was a time blockage, much like the geographical blockage that was going on, that they could not be operated past 11 o'clock, I think, from Saturday to, or 11 o'clock any night. I can't remember the exact parameters, but was that not the case, or was that not one of the agreements that we struck when we met with the operator back a while ago?
It was.
Chair, through to Council Beck, you're absolutely correct, and I guess this is the purpose of our follow-up with the vendor. We need to understand why these mechanisms aren't being, we don't have the ability, we don't have access to the software, the system, so we
Right.
have no ability to audit, right? And so we rely on good faith, and it's clear from feedback from citizens and our own observations from officers that it's not working well, and we need to inform them of that and find a way forward here.
Because to your point about good faith, there was a lot of good faith that was put out when we agreed to go forward on this, with regards to in the face of a lot of concerns that had already been expressed from the previous year. So good faith is a two-way street, and that has to be. I'm glad you're bringing this to our attention, because I think it's something that has to, if we are going to continue down this road, that has to be present. So
Is there only-
I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed, honestly, to hear that.
Yeah.
That has taken, that the good faith is not there, and that we are still experiencing some of the challenges that we've
Was
faced
there
before.
another company come in too, Chief? Did you have? There's two now, right?
There is a second company
There is a
involved
second
too,
company
yes.
too. Yeah, okay.
I have my.
Oh,
light up.
I'm sorry. I can't see your
Just
screen.
to follow up on that, the second company, though, does not have an agreement with the city to use public space. Is that correct? Like city-owned space?
That's correct. I'm not aware of any agreement with the
Okay.
city with that second company.
And then just to follow up on that, is the counselor for the area, if anyone thinks it's gotten better from last year, if anything, it's gotten worse, and it's very easy to identify the private scooters that people own and they just do their own thing, and the ones that are owned by the companies. And if the company ones claim that they have a system in place that stops them from being on the boardwalks and every place, I call bull on that, because I'm out every single day and they're all over the boardwalks, they're on sidewalks. I've sent photos, and I've actually made several phone calls to the company, and to this day have never gotten a call back. So even that operating on good faith where, hey, reach out anytime if there's problems, crickets. So it's disappointing, as Councillor Beck said, it's really disappointing.
And I agree with you, Deputy Mayor, because you and I discussed that when I had a phone call in, and then you called the operator also, and no response, and like just left a message on his phone saying who we were, just wanted to have a discussion. And so I guess it's the same with other things in the city. If you don't want to help yourself, you know.
I know, I did the modern way too. I even text messaged and got nothing, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that, Chief.
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
Oh.
just to follow up on a Facebook message from someone that was just out the other night. The last 2 summers, the scooters are getting worse. I can't, the scooter thing, the city had told me it's a police matter, and the police told me it's a city matter. So they must have phoned police, and they said, no, that's still with city council. So I told them, I'm not moving out of the way anymore. I have to hit them if I have to hit them to stay on the boardwalk. So, I know HAP was here. All these mechanisms we're going to put in place. They're going, is it TAF? Not HAP. Housing the accelerator fund, and TAF is the The guy, the administrator with the fund, yeah. Okay, no, but Taft, we have to reach out to him. Thanks there, Counselor Beck.
Okay. Introduction of new business. See none? A motion to adjourn. Thank you. Counselor Beck, Deputy Mayor Yankoff, thank you. Thank you, folks.